Hello, everyone. Today we will be talking about disability representation in theater. This is Cam, and my partner is Fernanda, and We are so excited to be talking to you about this today. We wanted to start off the presentation by giving a brief history of people with disabilities in theater. Um, as an actress, I was really interested to do this research just because I wanted to see if there were more people like me, especially like 100 years ago, 200 years ago, represented on stage in theater. Um, but I was really disappointed to find out that there was not really a big push for people with disabilities to perform on stage or in film. Of course, film didn't come until much later, but in my research, I discovered that there were two prominent disabled actors before the disability rights movement. The first was named Esmond Knight. He lived from 1906 to 1987, and he was born in England. He was not born with the disability. He acquired it while fighting in the Second World War. He lost sight in both of his eyes for a few years and was able to regain some of his sight before he passed away. He was an actor before and after he acquired his disability and played roles on stage, in film, and on TV. The second person is named Lionel Barrymore. He was both an actor and a director in his lifetime. He suffered greatly from arthritis in the late 1920s, but was still mostly mobile and managing his pain with morphine until he suffered from a series of falls and other injuries in the late 1930s. After that, he was confined to a wheelchair and took high doses of cocaine and morphine every day to help with his pain. And I appreciate that these two people were highlighted as individuals with disabilities who gained success through theater, but I was sad that there were no people who were born with disabilities listed. As we learned earlier in class, the only performance opportunities people who were born with obvious physical disabilities were given were freak shows and pantomiming. Disabled people were used as the punchline to a joke written by able-bodied individuals. Our second little tidbit is talking about how people with disabilities are portrayed on stage. For the most part, all portrayals of characters with disabilities are for inspiration porn purposes. For example, our beloved Tiny Tim. We've already discussed this character portrayal in class, but to reiterate, Tiny Tim is a very one-dimensional character. His disability is portrayed as his only problem and is used to infantilize him. I've seen a number of productions of A Christmas Carol, and I can say with confidence that I've never seen Tiny Tim being played by an individual with a disability. Uh, the next character that came to mind was Crutchy Morris from Newsies. As his name suggests, he requires a crutch to walk after fighting polio as a child. During my research, I actually discovered that many people are very passionate about how offensive this character is and wishes that he would be removed from the show altogether. I found an article that featured an interview with an individual who shared this sentiment, which is the quote at the top of the screen. Um, if and when they did cast able people in the role of Crutchy, it's best to just eliminate the disability. And as much as I say that representation is important, I mean accurate representation because inaccurate is worse than no representation at all. My last character is Nessa Rose from Wicked. This character is a bit more complicated. The orange of her disability are clouded with racism. So Elphaba is Nessa Rose's older sister, and she was born green. In an effort to stop that from happening again, their father forced their mother to drink some special white tea every single day that she was pregnant. Then Nessa Rose was born with an unnamed disability that confined her to a wheelchair. This idea kind of cross sections with racism because it implies to the audience that the only thing worse than being disabled is to have different colored skin. Um, Nessa talks about being wheelchair bound in almost every scene, and her character is not developed deeper than her disability. However, the recent movie adaptation of the musical featured the first wheelchair bound actress to play Nessa Rose. Her name is Marissa Bode. This is a huge step for the musical theater community, and hopefully it will lead to more companies to seek out disabled actors to portray roles properly. In my research, I just stumbled upon this screenshot here, this lovely "What disability does Nessa Rose have in Wicked?" And it says here that she is non-ambulatory due to complications during her mother's pregnancy, but here it highlights and just says a wheelchair. Yep, a wheelchair.
Another thing that we wanted to highlight was with our presentation is the importance of representation and accessibility for both disabled actors and their audience members. One theater group that we will get into later on into the presentation is called Deaf West Theater. This group can cast deaf and hearing actors side by side and incorporates ASL into their performances. Um, this is wonderful because it presents a platform for disabled actors to perform and communicate to their communities as well. Um, and while Deaf West has made strides in inclusivity, there is still room to grow. The following are some critiques of their performance of Spring Awakening in from 2024 from a partially deaf theater director, Brian Andrew Chelslick. He commented that he was thrilled to see Broadway audiences falling in love with my friends and this production as a deaf audience member. I have to say it was not fully accessible to me, and as it was designed for a hearing audience. I will admit that I do have the privilege of having some residual hearing left, and my hearing aids helped me experience the music. Also noting that um, he had seen this production many times before, so he already knew the story from previous viewings. And in an intermission, he actually ran into a colleague and who was fully deaf and asked for their opinion on the show at the moment. And he stated that his colleague, his face dropped, and as he told him that he could not follow the story, and it was hard to follow the signing due to light design, periodic projection of text that was often illegible either due to where it was placed or by the font that they chose to have the text in. And also the constant dual shadowing of hearing and death casting was very distracting. And while I believe it is important to give them props for all the strides that they have made, it is also important that we listen to these voices in their own community so we can better create an accessible form of media for all members of our community. And then this is where we kind of dive more into the film section for a moment. And in our research, we've found that many disabled characters in film are portrayed by able-bodied characters about 95% of the time. And actually, in there's only two actors that have been awarded Oscars for their portrayal of a character with the same disability that they have. Um, One of the only two actors to receive an Oscar would be Marlee Matlin. She is actually the most recent. She became legally deaf at the age of 18 months. She had lost hearing in her right ear, and she lost 80% of her hearing in her left ear due to a fever she had as a child. She won an Oscar in 1986 for a role as Sarah Norman in the film Child of a Lesser God. She plays a deaf custodian, Sarah Norman, at a school for deaf, and in the film, she meets a male lead who is a new speech therapist who comes to the school, and um, they initially clash very often as he attempts to teach her to speak and read lips, and it creates nothing but annoyance on her end because she is fully deaf, and the male lead sees this as a issue to fix. As we've seen, this is a very classic medical model. And so her portrayal in that was great. And then we lead into some of her activism, or her activism. So she's a active death rights activist. In 2009, she had made a tweet criticizing Netflix for their lack of closed captioning. She was streaming The Wizard of Oz as one of her daughters was getting ready to perform a play in her school, and she realized as she was playing the movie that she couldn't follow along because there was no way for her to, or there was no closed captioning for her to follow the story as it went along. And then when she tweeted about this led to like an influx of people demanding Twitter make their shows more accessible. And then later on, she started working with the National Association of the Deaf, NAD, and they sent a letter to Congress demanding that streaming sites offer closed captioning. It was only when that the NAD filed a lawsuit against Netflix that Netflix decided to do anything. Um, they settled the suit by agreeing to offer captions in their shows by 2014. And when you really think about it, it's not that long ago. Even more surprisingly is that the FCC they only issued a mandate for MVPDs, which is multiple multi-channel video programming distributors to offer closed captioning um, last year. So this rule they had announced it back in 2024, and they have mandated that all streaming sites, such as like Disney, Netflix, they will now have to offer easily accessible closed captioning by August 17th, 2026. And that just seems something that we should have had from a long, long while ago. And like that was very shocking for me to learn within this research. And here we have a little trailer of the film that she was in, and let's see if I can play it.
Sarah, is she a teacher too? She was one of the brightest students we've ever had. He was warned about her. Why doesn't she use her voice? Sarah's not hard of hearing. She's totally deaf. Sarah, you are the most mysterious, beautiful, angry person I have ever met. Look, James, I've seen this kind of thing before. It just doesn't work. I love her. What began as a simple challenge or became a love story beyond words. Academy Award winner William Hurt. Hey, you want to talk to me? Then you learn language. Marley Matlin. I would hate you for not learning how to speak. Sarah, I love children of a lesser God. Help me.
So that trailer does present, some problematic issues, but the movie itself, I've only seen through trailers, seems very very good in like the portrayal of a deaf character. And then moving on, we're gonna talk about Harold Russell. He's the only other actor to receive an Oscar for his portrayal of a character with the same disability as himself. He played Homer in The Best Years of Our Lives, and he actually received two Oscars for this performance. He received one for Best Supporting Actor, and then another honorary award for bringing hope and courage to his fellow veterans. So he became disabled in 1944 in a training accident. And so Harold Russell often volunteered, and he did a lot even prior to his acquisition of this disability. He did a lot of volunteer work for veterans, and he was very involved. And so in this incident, he was training others in demolition work, and he was holding some TNT explosives that had a defective fuse. And because of the fuse, it detonated prematurely, and his hands were they exploded from the wrist up. So after that, he was given two prosthetic hooks to serve as arms, which you can see in the photo a bit. Um, he was very active in the AMVETS. That was a volunteer-led organization formed by World War II veterans of the United States military. He also actually served as a chairman for the President's Commission on the Employment of Handicapped. I'm sorry, on the President's Commission on the Employment of the Handicapped from the early 1960s to the late 1980s. This was also a unpaid position. He volunteered to do this in order to help fellow veterans acclimate to civilian life after the war. And this is where we see kind of the intersectionality that we've discussed before, where it's not disability leads to so many groups and communities. And in the following slide, we'll see a little snippet of his performance in the best years of our lives.
This is when I know I'm helpless. My hands are down there on the bed. Can't put them on again without calling to somebody for help. I can't smoke a cigarette or read a book. If that door should blow shut, I can't open it and get out of this room. It's dependent as a baby that doesn't know how to get anything except cry for it. Well, now you know. Now you have an idea of what it is. I guess you don't know what to say. It's all right. Go on home. Go away like your family said.
I know what to say, Homer. I love you, and I'm never going to leave you. Never.
Next, we're going to be talking about Deaf Web Theater and their initiatives as an organization. This is a picture of them for one of their most recent productions, American Idiot, last year. And then this is their about statement in which they are dedicated to advancing accessibility, equality, and representation for the deaf community through groundbreaking art projects. By engaging both deaf and hearing creatives and audiences, we amplify deaf perspectives and expand the definition of cultural life. As a vital force in the arts landscape, we elevate deaf artists and stories, ensuring visibility and impact in the entertainment while fostering a more inclusive and dynamic artistic world.
So I wanted to do some research and find like videos of them performing, but there really wasn't all that much other than like trailers for um for their shows, which really doesn't give us a great idea of what they look like performance wise. But I did find an interview with Deaf West. This is a clip of their rehearsal process. Um, this next video that I'm gonna show you is from the same video. It's just later on. That next interview was the actress that you just saw on stage, but I did want to focus more on the deaf perspectives, especially in Deaf West, because this actress specifically was a hearing actress. I wanted to focus more on the perspectives of um, the deaf people.
Hi, my name is Nick. It's my name sign, and I'm a punk skater. I'm 14 years old, and I'm playing the role of Theo. And I am Jose Lopez. I'm 12 years old, and I'm also playing the role of Theo.
Right on. So, if you guys can just tell me, how long have you guys been acting?
Well, I've never acted professionally until I got this job here, but I do enjoy acting. I'm having fun. And I've acted before at my school, which was Marlton School. I've been in many productions there. We did Oliver. We also did The Runaway. And we did a version of The Grinch Who Stole Christmas. And this is my first time here working with Deaf West. And it's new, it's different. I've also performed for GLAD, the Greater Los Angeles Council on Deafness.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So wonderful.
Alrighty. Now we just have our discussion questions. Um, so we wanted to highlight these specifically. Why does performance art so often exclude people with disabilities? Um, and then just turn to a partner and tell them 2 new things you learned from this presentation. And then that concludes our presentation. Um, our works cited are here. And here's our discussion questions. Thanks so much.
Thank you.